my worst date. It was probably my first date ever. It was when I was in 7th grade, and I went on a date with Sandy Wolf, which is an awesome name, and also it's a descriptor. We went to the movies to see Godzilla, which was fine. Then we had KFC with his parents and his sisters, which was super awkward. And then we went to the middle school dance, where I proceeded to dance with everybody else except for him. So maybe it wasn't my worst first date, but it might have been his.
All right, so I was a sophomore here at Nobles, and let me start over again. All right, so it was sophomore year here at Nobles. I was 16, and I had just asked out this girl that I thought I liked. Spoilers, I didn't. Her name was Hill, and she's a wonderful person, and she's still a very close friend. And I think she would agree that the date that we went on did not go well. First things first, I was not old enough to drive someone else that isn't my family member. And so my dad had to drive me to her house and then picked her up, and then we were in the car, the three of us, and that's never a good mix of people with your dad and your significant other, or is she even your significant other if this is the first date? I don't know. Anyways, I pick her up with my dad. We drive over to Harvard Square. We're both theater people. We've both been doing theater here for the first 2 years while we were at Nobles. And so I thought, let's go see Rent the movie. For those who haven't seen Rent, it's terrible. Don't talk to Vivian, she'll tell you otherwise, but it's not a good movie, and it's definitely not a good musical. But any musical is never better on film because they're written to be performed live with an audience, and that's how it's supposed to be. And with a movie, it's just bad. So we go to this movie. And we're supposed to be like, we're supposed to really like it because we're theater people. And I had this in my head, like, this is the way this date's supposed to go. And so I try to put my arm around her, and it's a super uncomfortable position, and then my arm falls asleep for the first hour and a half of the movie, and it's just really bad, and neither of us are liking it. And then the movie's over, and we both don't want to say it's a bad movie because we don't want to make it a negative thing going on until we get to Bertucci's, which is where I thought would be what a romantic place to eat dinner. And then we both realized it's a terrible movie. And then we both realized that it's not going the way we thought it was going to go, as if something were mysteriously off about this date, about two really, really good friends going on a date. And so then we sit there, and we're sort of sitting there quietly, and then we leave Bertucci's, and then well, my dad's not picking me up for 30 minutes. So then we just sort of sit randomly on a stoop in Harvard Square for 30 minutes, waiting for my dad to pick me up and Hill up. And we're just sitting there none of us want to mention how awkward it is, but it's really awkward. And then finally my dad's there, and we drive back, and the car ride's silent on the way back to Wellesley, where she lives. Or is she Weston? One of those W towns. And literally we pull into her driveway, and before I can even say goodbye or that was nice, she bolts out of the car into the house, slams the door shut, and runs away. Which sort of sums up my feelings about the whole thing, and I must say that it helped to solidify a number of thoughts and feelings I may have had in my life, that this did not go well with Hill. But it was my only date with a woman, and it did not go well.
And the school, as I said, was really restrictive, very authoritarian. There was a river that ran down through the town. You couldn't cross the river to go into the town. You had to stay on the right bank. And so as a sop to 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids, boys, they would, every once in a great while, once a year, as I remember in the 11th grade, twice a year in the 12th grade, they would bus girls in from other schools. So it was like having a sporting event. You had you had two buses come in from, as I remember, it was Dobbs Ferry, or what we call Dobbs Ferry, and now it's more typically called the Master School. And the girls would get off the bus and they would say, Susan Beckley, Richard Baker. And Richard Baker would come out of a crowd of boys and come up and pick up Susan Beckley and would go off, and that would be the date for the rest of the day. Girls would arrive early afternoon, like at 1 o'clock. And this is in the 11th grade for me. One of the things that I was terrified of was dancing. And there was always a dance. That was the big deal. As soon as the dance was over, the girls got back on the bus and went home. But they stayed from, 2 o'clock in the afternoon until 11 o'clock in the evening. And you were paired up with somebody who got off the bus. This one day, this was in the fall of my 11th grade year, the bus comes in, but I'm not there because I'm playing football, and there's a game. So I've arranged for my roommate to pick up my date and stay with her until the football game is over, and then we can go to the dance together, the dinner and the dance together. And so I don't see this girl until 4:30 or something like that. But my roommate, I always used to think that maybe he switched girls, because he said, "Oh, you're in trouble." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "First of all, she hates sports. And as soon as she found out that you were playing in a game, she got really angry and wanted to know why she didn't have somebody who was there when she got off the bus." Well, I don't know, I don't remember, but I don't think I thought much of it at the time. But I sure thought a lot about it in the next 4 or 5 hours, because it wasn't just sports. This girl, Mimi LeBlanc was her name. It's amazing that I can remember her name. This is, over 60 years ago. She complained about everything. I mean, she didn't like the fact that I played sports. When she found out that I not only played a fall sport, but a winter sport and a spring sport, which almost everybody did. I mean, it's like here, everybody kind of goes and plays sports in the afternoon. And I don't, maybe she just didn't expect it. But anyway, she was against me from the start. There's no question about that. And then the other things that she complained about, she didn't like the food. Nice dinner. We didn't eat well in this place, but it was a pretty good dinner for the Kent School food. And the band, she was a kind of a socialite from New York, and she had gone to a lot of what they called in those days debutante parties. Deb parties, where there would be a band hired and everybody would dance and have a good time, and so she was hip to the good bands. Well, I can't possibly remember which band we had, but we had a band that was well below the quality she was used to, and so she complained about that, and then finally, I think she got so tired of complaining about things that she did, and she obviously wasn't pleased with me, that she did what girls often do. She went to the ladies' room, and she stayed in the ladies' room until the bus left to go back to the master's school.
My worst ever date was also my first date. I was in 5th grade, so it doesn't really count. We held hands once, and it was like tea, and the whole grade knew about it. But we went out to Cabot's for ice cream, and Cabot's is a pretty packed place, so we knew that we were gonna see some people that we knew, and we also were 5th graders, so we both arrived with our moms, and our moms were like, "Hey, how's it going?" Or actually, it was my dad and my older sister, who's 6 years older than me. So they walked in with us, and we sat down at a table, and when we sat down, the waiter was like, oh, so we're seating you at like 2 separate tables, talking to like my dad and my sister and this boy and I, and we were like, yeah, my dad told the waiter, he was like, this is her first date, this is my daughter, this is her first date ever. And so that was a great start that I loved. And so we sat down and we like were talking, and we, you know, like 5th graders do, and we ordered our ice cream, and we were like, you know, eating our ice cream, and I turned around and my dad and my sister were like sitting behind. They brought a newspaper like just to do this. They were sitting at the table next to me, and they had like the newspaper open there. They had like the phone out of the corner to take photos of this boy. And I need a can I get a newspaper? Can I like get up and like go buy
newspaper,
one?
yeah.
I'm gonna go ask the librarians. This is important. I got it. I even got the Nobleman. Shameless plug for the Nobleman. They're great. Let's shout out to Ellen Ipstock. Okay, this is like commitment. This is method acting. I should get credit for this. Except that I don't know how to open a newspaper, so -1 brownie point. Alex, get over. So my dad like took a newspaper. Like he like went out of his way to get a newspaper to bring it in. My dad and my sister each had pages. They were sitting there like casual, just eating my ice cream, not doing anything suspicious. Nothing going on here. It was great. I think everybody in the place was looking at my dad and this boy and I. It was great.